beings far beyond mortal comprehension, the outer gods. Since time immemorial, these divine entities had created countless universes. Known as the Absolutes, they were omnipotent, eternal beings who endlessly indulge in the act of creation, reveling in their pursuit of eternity. With each cycle of creation, new materials, laws, and souls came into existence. But over time, the Absolutes grew weary of their eternal routine. Boredom crept in until they discovered a new form of amusement: war. The Absolutes began orchestrating conflicts among their creations, watching as civilizations clashed and perished in endless battlefields. For these godlike beings, destruction became a form of entertainment. The suffering, the chaos, the death, it was all a spectacle meant to amuse them. But then, something unexpected happened. One of the Absolutes was slain, not by a rival, but by its own creations. This shocking event sent ripples across the realms. Other Absolutes from distant dimensions turned their gaze toward the world that had lost its master. The death of one of their own, brought about by lower beings, was unprecedented. Yet rather than mourn, the Absolutes fixated on a more pressing matter: the unclaimed power left behind. That immense power now lay dormant, awaiting the first worthy being to seize it. And so a new chapter began. The story shifts to a bustling high school classroom where Suho shares exciting news with his friends. He's just been accepted into Korea Art University. His friends stare at him in disbelief, their eyes wide. One of them groans, half-jokingly suggesting he should have retaken the exam instead. Suho simply laughs it off. At least now I'm finally free from this hell. But the moment is cut short when a voice calls out from behind, laced with mockery. Suho turns to see Lee Yunchul swaggering toward him with a smirk. Suho deliberately misnames him. "What is it this time?" he says dryly. Lee snaps, irritated. "I'm Lee Yunchul, not Kim Seong-chul. And thanks to you, my plan to take over the school is ruined." Suho smirks, unfazed. "Then I guess you should be thanking me. Now you can graduate without causing more trouble." Around them, the classroom atmosphere tightens. Students glance between the two. They've grown used to Lee starting fights. Graduation is just around the corner. Why was Lee stirring trouble now? More importantly, why was he bullying Suho, who tried to live a positive life after his parents went missing? But Lee didn't seem to care. Without warning, he lunged. Suho didn't flinch. Calm and quick, he struck back. A clean knee to the face that sent Lee stumbling. "Just make it to graduation quietly," Suho muttered under his breath. And then something strange happened. A glowing, unnatural energy began to flicker around his hand. Lee roared and threw a punch, not at Suho, but at the lockers behind him. The classroom fell silent. Everyone stared in shock. That wasn't just anger. Lee had obliterated the lockers with a single strike. Suho, now on the floor, looked up in disbelief. Lee stood above him, hands still glowing with that strange, otherworldly power. The world Suho thought he knew had just changed forever. 2 years had passed. Now a second-year college student, Suho still couldn't shake the memory of that strange day, the moment when his world first began to shift. While walking across campus, an announcement echoed over the loudspeakers. All classes in the main building are being moved to the side building. A gate has appeared, and hunters are inside performing a raid. For your safety, please stay away from the area. Nearby, a curious man asked one of the staff how long the hunters had been inside. The worker responded, "It's been over 8 hours. It's just a D-rank gate, so they should be wrapping it up soon." Suho continued on, but his heartbeat quickened. Another gate again. It had been 3 years since the world was shattered by the appearance of the mysterious gates, rifts that connected Earth to terrifying dungeons. For a brief time after a gate appeared, monsters would pour out, threatening the lives of countless people. In response, humanity began to change. Some individuals awakened to supernatural abilities in a phenomenon now known as awakening. The world had become chaotic, unstable, its future uncertain. But thanks to one man, Woo Jinchul, society found a fragile balance. He established the Hunter Association, an organization that gathered and managed the awakened. With an official structure in place, the chaos became manageable. Now humanity was split in two: the awakened, blessed with power beyond human limits, and the non-awakened, ordinary people who could only watch from the sidelines. In this new system, fate was cruel. Someone could suddenly receive immense strength, while others, no matter how hard they worked, remained powerless. Even the weakest awakened, an E rank, held more influence than a hard-working non-awakened. If hunters failed to stop the gates, the world would fall into ruin. Put simply, the non-awakened couldn't survive without the awakened. But the awakened, they didn't need the rest. That's why Suho felt a deep gratitude toward the hunters. Because of them, people like him, ordinary, non-awakened, could live in peace. And yet, somewhere inside, he felt uneasy. Was he simply growing used to losing things? Used to living without parents? Used to depending on others for survival? There was a time when Suho believed he could achieve anything. But when everything he had was taken away, all that remained was helplessness. His mother had once told him he resembled his father. How would his father have faced this kind of world? Lost in thought, Suho absent-mindedly sketched in his notebook. Passing by his art instructor Lim, stopped and smiled at the page. Suho looked up, replying casually, "My hand just seemed to be moving on its own." The professor leaned closer, amused. "Is that an ant? It's a pretty creative take." Suho glanced back at the drawing, puzzled. Why did I even draw this? He wondered. Meanwhile, at the gate, security personnel had gathered near the portal to greet the returning hunters. The atmosphere was calm, too calm, suggesting the subjugation had gone smoothly. A staff member stepped forward and thanked Hunter Kim Jong-soo for his service. Kim gave a brief nod as he reported, "The dungeon has been cleared." He went on to explain what they had encountered inside. A new type of beast. It had the form of a humanoid and spewed blue flames from both its eyes and mouth. It had attacked viciously with claws and fangs, though it wasn't particularly strong. Kim had been scratched during the fight, but since there were no after effects, he assumed it was only a minor threat. A staff member responded with surprise. That kind of beast hasn't been recorded since the gates began appearing. Good thing it wasn't anything too dangerous. Then he added politely, "Mr. Kim, please write a brief report on the subjugation before leaving." But just as he turned to prepare the documentation, his body froze mid-motion. A concerned staffer called out. Without warning, Kim turned and struck down the staffer beside him with a single blow. Panic erupted. The nearby hunters backed away in shock. Horror dawned on their faces as they realized it was the curse. The blue flames from the dungeon had taken hold of him, and with a twisted expression, he began slaughtering everyone in his path. The crowd near the gate scattered, screaming in terror. Some tried to run, others didn't make it. The cursed hunter chased them down, tearing through the security staff and fellow hunters alike. In a distant classroom, the sudden noise jolted students from their lesson. They rushed to the windows, trying to understand the commotion outside. Suho looked up, heart pounding. Something wasn't right. He muttered under his breath, "People are attacking each other." At first, everyone assumed it was a dungeon break, but then they saw it. Civilians engulfed in eerie blue flames, their eyes glowing unnaturally. Then someone turned to their art instructor. "You're an awakened, right? Do something." But Instructor Lim shook his head grimly. "I'm just an E rank. I can't do anything." Just then, Suho spotted him, a hunter, blazing with blue flames, standing ominously outside. In the next instant, the cursed hunter leapt toward the classroom. Suho's instincts screamed at him. "Run!" he shouted. The hunter crashed through the glass. Shards rained down. Screams filled the room as chaos exploded. Suho bolted toward the door, yelling at his classmates to escape. Ahead of him, a girl had collapsed, her legs trembling, unable to move. "Please help me," she cried. Suho stopped, just for a moment. Then he ran. "I'll call the hunters," he thought, sprinting down the corridor. But even as he ran, guilt clawed at him. What am I doing? Calling a hunter now, it's practically the same as leaving her to die. But I'm not awakened. What else can I do? Eyes shut tight, Suho pushed through the panic. And then a memory surfaced. A dream, or maybe a vision. A strange one, like a game. He had fought monsters that grew stronger with every encounter. Each time he had to grow stronger too, again and again, until eventually he reached the final level. There he faced a powerful boss, an enemy of overwhelming strength. But oddly, it wasn't fear he felt. It was respect, because the final boss looked just like his father. Somehow the dream had projected his ideal of his father into that final enemy, a man strong, reliable, and unyielding. If Dad were here, what would he do? Snapping back to reality, Suho spotted a fire extinguisher. Without thinking, he grabbed it and charged straight at the cursed hunter who was about to strike the helpless girl. With all his strength, Suho slammed the extinguisher into the hunter's face. This is what Dad would have done, he thought. But then, reality struck him. What now? He knew non-awakened attacks couldn't harm demonic beasts. As panic threatened to overtake him, something strange happened. The monster froze. The classroom fell unnaturally silent. Even the terrified girl had stopped moving. Suho glanced around. Time itself had stopped. A glowing screen appeared before him. Secret quest, condition met. Courage of the powerless. You have earned the right to become a player. Suho's breath caught. This is just like that dream. In the middle of this desperate moment, one final chance. If he could become stronger, just like in the vision. Was there any reason not to accept? With resolve in his eyes, Suho chose to accept. A sudden burst of brilliant light engulfed the classroom. A notification appeared before Suho's eyes. Congratulations on becoming a player. A status window materialized. As Suho stared at it, realization dawned. Just as I thought. Before he could process it fully, another system message popped up. Quest notice. Defeat the mist. From the thick mist, figures began to stir, monsters rising from their slumber. Among them was a D-rank awakened mistburn. Seeing it, Suho told the girl next to him to run. As she fled the scene, Suho scanned the enemies more closely. Two non-awakened civilians and one hunter, all transformed into savage beasts. The two non-awakened mistburns charged toward him with murderous intent. But Suho didn't run. If I've really awakened, he thought, then I have to fight. Suho grabbed a fire extinguisher and slammed it into the creature's face. He dropped the extinguisher and clenched his fist. With every ounce of focus and emotion, he drove a powerful punch into the monster's skull. The beast rocketed upward, smashing into the ceiling. Suho stood in stunned silence, barely able to believe what he'd just done. I took it down, in one hit. A system notification confirmed it. In that moment, another enemy charged at him. Suho met it head-on with a fierce kick, knocking it out cold. A new notification rang in. Tutorial quest completed. As he turned to face the final enemy, Suho smiled. So this is what it feels like to awaken. He struck the beast with a confident punch, but it didn't budge. Suho's eyes widened. The monster endured the blow. Then in a blur, the creature's claw slashed across Suho's chest. Blood spurted from the deep wound as Suho quickly widened the distance between them. Gasping for air, he glanced down at his bleeding chest. If I get hurt by this thing, will I turn into one of them? Just then, the system issued another message. Status removed due to the effect of the longevity skill. His injuries began to heal on their own. Suho stared in disbelief. He barely had time to process it when the monster attacked again, pinning him to the ground. Struggling beneath its weight, Suho desperately searched for a way out. Then he remembered. The system rewards. Quickly, he accepted the rewards from the earlier quest and allocated the stat points, focusing them into strength. A surge of new power coursed through him. With a roar, he broke free from the monster's grasp and lunged forward, unleashing a furious barrage of punches. The creature fought back, but Suho dodged and countered with precision. He continued pouring all his earned points into strength. So I really can get stronger, he thought. All this time, I believed a person's rank was fixed. With a single devastating punch, he sent the monster crashing into the wall. Before it could recover, he closed in and launched a relentless assault. Each strike thundered with force and fury. The monster no longer resisted. It could only endure the onslaught. Suho didn't stop. Breathing heavily, bruised and bloodied, he stood over the defeated creature's broken body. He had survived. A system message flashed before Suho's eyes. Exhausted, Suho dropped to his knees, panting heavily. But despite the pain, a look of triumph crossed his face. This was real. He was truly an awakened player now. For the first time, he felt the strength to save others and bring order to this chaos. But just as he tried to catch his breath, a new threat emerged. From the smoke and debris outside, a towering figure approached, dragging an enormous sword behind him. With an unnatural leap, the figure soared through the air. Peering through a shattered window, Suho tried to make sense of the source of the disturbance. But before he could react, another mistburn lunged at him. This one was no ordinary beast. It was a C-rank awakened mistburn wielding a sword. The creature slashed through the building, its massive blades shattering everything in its path. Meanwhile, across the city in South Korea, an emergency broadcast blared through the streets. Dungeon break at Korea National University of Arts. Evacuate immediately. At the campus perimeter, emergency forces had already gathered. More backup arrived, but the platoon leader was fuming with frustration. Why are we just sitting here while people are dying? When is the Hunter Association sending someone? A soldier responded calmly. They're still trying to locate a B-rank or higher-ranked hunter. The leader's face twisted in confusion. Wasn't this gate classified as D-rank? Why would we need a B-rank hunter? The soldier's tone grew grim. The situation changed. The association believes some of the hunters have been infected, including C-rank hunter Kim Jong-soo. Back inside the shattered building, Suho stared at the new monster. This one was different. It wasn't just strong, it was intelligent, and it had a weapon. He assessed the threat, a C-rank awakened mistburn. Definitely not like the others. But Suho had leveled up just moments ago. Maybe he had a chance. Without warning, the monster attacked. Suho dodged instinctively, the room shaking from the force of the strike. His heart pounded. He kicked a nearby fire extinguisher toward the beast, hoping to blind it. The monster effortlessly sliced it in half, releasing a cloud of smoke. Using the cover, Suho bolted from the room. Maybe backup will arrive soon. Maybe I just have to survive until then. As the monster began to follow Suho, it spotted a group of terrified female students huddled together, trembling on the rooftop. With a feral leap, the monster jumped from the window, its blade raised. One brutal swing, blood painted the rooftop. Suho froze, his fists clenched, his rage ignited. No more running. There's no time to wait for the hunters. He charged. His foot connected with the monster's back, but it barely reacted. With a single swing, the creature split the floor in two. The shockwave nearly knocked Suho off his feet. He realized one thing. One clean hit from this thing, and I'll die. But he couldn't back down. He lunged in again, fists moving in a blur. Punch after punch. The mistburn retaliated, each swing savage and deadly. Suho dodged, weaved, countered. He slammed his knee into the monster's burning face, but the creature struck back, its blade slicing across Suho's chest. Blood exploded from the wound. Suho was thrown into the wall. His body ached, broken and bruised. His vision blurred. A system alert echoed in his mind. Suho coughed blood and rose to his feet, barely holding on. 1 HP, he murmured. Is the system refusing to let me fall? The air cracked. Suho braced for the final clash, ignoring the pain tearing through his body. Again the air cracked. The mistburn leapt toward him, blades screaming through the air. Suho's vision dimmed, and then he collapsed. The air cracked, and a dimensional rift tore open. From within the rip, a majestic figure emerged. The Ant King, Baru, had returned. Just as the mistburn charged toward Suho, Baru landed between them, shielding him. His hand hovered over Suho, a soft light flowing from his palm. Suho's wounds began to heal rapidly. Baru's voice was low and regretful. He muttered that it was his fault for arriving too late. Then Baru turned to face the monster. His aura erupted in waves of power, pressing down on everything around him. With one ruthless strike, Baru reduced the mistburn to shredded fragments. The creature was annihilated, but it wasn't over. Another mistburn crawled along the ceiling, stealthily aiming for a fleeing civilian. Baru didn't hesitate. He leapt with lethal grace, tearing through the creature without pause. Within seconds, all the invading monsters had been destroyed. Nothing left but limbs and blood-stained debris. Outside, the smoke began to clear, But just then, every glass window in the university shattered at once. A radiant, blinding light bathed the battlefield. Silence followed. Onlookers stood frozen, unsure if what they were seeing was real. Beru returned to Suho, his gaze softening. He whispered, "It's been a while, young monarch." Then stories shift to flashback of a younger Suho sat quietly in a room, sketching ants with incredible detail. His collection was impressive for a child. Then a shadow fell over him. Beru stood there holding a drawing of himself, one Suho had made. He teased the boy with polite praise, clearly touched by the moment. Tears welled up in Beru's eyes. Now back to the present. Suho awoke with a start, confused. He was lying in a hospital bed. Reality rushed back in. Later that day, Suho spoke with his uncle. His uncle demanded to know what had happened, asking if Suho was injured in the sudden disaster. He insisted that from now on, Suho should hire awakened bodyguards. The world was far too dangerous now to take risks. Suho reassured him he was fine, but he was more concerned with the time. He'd been unconscious for 2 whole days. The news played nonstop on TV. Reports flooded in about the Korea National University of Arts incident, which had left the country in shock. The disaster had caused numerous casualties and stirred national outrage. The most disturbing revelation: the appearance of Miss Burns, monsters that could infect hunters and turn them into demons. And despite the incident occurring in the heart of Seoul, the Hunter Association's response had been significantly delayed. Even after the belated arrival of backup, one question haunted everyone. Who or what killed all the mist burns inside the university? He turned off the television quietly. So it wasn't a dream. He really had awakened. Even more, he was now someone who could grow stronger with each level up. But there was one thing he still didn't understand. He had been seriously injured during the fight with the C-rank awakened Mistburn. So how had he survived? A familiar voice echoed in his mind. "Because I took care of those pests," Biru replied confidently. Suho blinked in confusion. A moment later, Biru appeared before him. "It's been a while since I last greeted you, young monarch." Tears welled up in Biru's eyes as he looked at Suho. He was overwhelmed seeing how much the boy had grown. Memories began to resurface, fragmented pieces falling into place. Suho remembered now. Biru was one of the black, ant-like creatures who had stayed by his side when he was a child. Why did I forget him until now? Biru explained that he had crossed dimensions to meet Suho again. Suho asked why these black creatures had surrounded him in childhood. He had so many unanswered questions. More than anything, he was puzzled. "They were so much bigger in my memories," he said. Biru chuckled, explaining that his current small size was a side effect of consuming a massive amount of mana while crossing dimensions. In his true form, he was far more imposing. Suho checked the system window, which listed Beru as a private-grade companion. But Beru scoffed at that, cursing the system. "Martial grade," he corrected firmly. Suho thanked him for the rescue. Beru scratched his cheek bashfully. He didn't look it, but he was a skilled healer too. Then Beru revealed the real reason for his appearance: to break the seal that had been holding Suho's powers back. But to his surprise, the seal had already been broken by Suho himself. Beru nodded in approval, impressed by how far Suho had come. Curious and unsettled, Suho turned to Beru. He asked, his voice low with tension, if the mysterious seal placed on him had anything to do with the vivid dream he had experienced. Beru nodded solemnly. That vision hadn't been a dream at all. It was a memory. Everything Suho had seen and felt had truly happened. Beru explained further. His father, the legendary shadow monarch, Jinwoo, had sealed away both Suho's powers and his memories, a decision made to give his son a normal life. That revelation struck Suho like lightning. He stood in silence, trying to process it all. Then came the question that had haunted him since childhood. Was Beru somehow connected to his father, the man who had disappeared without a trace? Beru's stern expression softened as he answered. Jinwoo hadn't abandoned his son. He had left Earth entirely to fight a war in outer space. Confused, Suho pressed for more. Beru explained that the Shadow Monarch had gone to battle against a terrifying force, the Outer Gods, beings from beyond the known universe who sought to conquer and corrupt all of existence. These monstrous entities had begun sending apostles and beasts through dimensional rifts or gates in an attempt to invade Earth. To help Suho understand, Baru conjured shadowy projections. Images danced through the air. That warrior, Baru said, is your father. He's protecting this world from them. Suho's heartbeat quickened. The gates, the monsters, everything that had plagued Earth. It was all part of a larger cosmic war. Then Suho asked whether his mother had been with his father when they vanished, but Baru shook his head. He hadn't seen her. Suho revealed something troubling. His mother had disappeared the exact same day as his father. For years, he had assumed they'd left together. Baru froze, panic flickering across his face. If Suho's mother hadn't gone with Jinwoo, then it could only mean one thing. She might have been captured by the forces of the outer gods. That realization broke something inside Suho. His fists clenched. His jaw tightened. He swore he would no longer sit by and wait. If the outer gods were the reason his parents were gone, then he would tear down the heavens if he had to. He would bring them back. Baru nodded in agreement. If Suho wanted a chance, he would have to grow stronger, fast. Jinwoo might not return for some time, but Suho didn't have to wait. He could start now. As if on cue, the system responded to his resolve. Quest unlocked. Trial of the Shadow. You are the son of the great Shadow Monarch. To inherit his true power, you must prove yourself. Enter the dungeon and demonstrate your worth. A mysterious black key appeared before him, and the system instructed Suho to insert it into his own shadow. Without hesitation, he obeyed. The moment the key touched the darkness beneath his feet, a swirling portal opened on the wall nearby, its energy humming with power. Baru placed a steady hand on Suho's shoulder and gave a final nod of encouragement. Claim the power that rightfully belongs to you, young monarch. For a moment, Suho hesitated. Shadow monarchs, outer gods, cosmic wars. It was almost too much to believe. And yet, if this was his only chance to see his parents again, then he couldn't stop here. I need to level up. No matter what, he thought as he stepped forward. Behind him, Baru's thoughts wandered to the final command he had received from his king. Jinwoo had entrusted him with a mission. Go to Earth, release Suho's seal. The outer gods may already be reaching into our world. Return his power, his memories, and protect him. For the rest, act as you see fit. Watching Suho walk into the unknown, Baru whispered to himself, So you've left the rest in my hands, my king. Straightening his back, he declared aloud, I, Baru, shall remain at the young monarch's side. I will watch over his growth. Together the two stepped into the gate, and with a final flash of light, the portal vanished behind them, leaving behind only the silence of a world that had just witnessed the return of destiny. As Suho and Baru stepped through the gate, Baru began to explain their surroundings. This place was the land of the dead, a domain where no living being could set foot without the permission of its master. This was the Shadow Dungeon. Suho looked around, taking in the eerie landscape. Though called a dungeon, it felt more like a ruined city than a typical labyrinth. Strangely, the place felt familiar. Suddenly, a quest notification appeared before Suho. Survive for 4 hours? The denizens of the Shadow Dungeon will never accept a weak master. Survive and prove your worth. Curious, Suho asked Baru if he simply needed to survive here for 4 hours. Baru warned him to stay alert. The time of suffering was about to begin. As they talked, neither noticed the monsters silently closing in from above. Just as the warning came too late, a creature lunged, attempting to ambush Suho from behind. Reacting quickly, Suho delivered a clean kick to the monster's gut, enough to knock it off balance but not to finish it. His curiosity piqued. Baru explained that if a scout appeared this early, there were likely more nearby. Without hesitation, Suho dove in to kill the creature before it could signal reinforcements. Baru tried to warn him against rushing, but Suho was confident. The goblin scout didn't even have a colored name tag, marking it as weaker than himself. Suho struck fast, disarming the goblin and then crushing its skull with its own axe. Cold and efficient. After the kill, he turned to Baru and explained that the absence of a colored name meant it was a low-level threat. Once colored name tags started to appear, That's when the real danger would begin. As they spoke, a sound caught their attention. They looked around and saw another goblin scout signaling nearby comrades. Seeing this, Suho's resolve hardened. Now there was a whole swarm coming. One goblin even bore a colored name tag, clearly the strongest among them. Suho asked Beru for backup, but Beru shook his head. His mana was running low, and stepping in now would prevent Suho from gaining valuable combat experience. Frustrated, Suho muttered that Beru wasn't being very helpful. Goblins began to surround him. As the goblins charged, Suho activated a new skill, Ruler's Authority. The axe from the fallen goblin flew into his hand, and he began cleaving through the swarm with uncanny precision. His movements seemed guided by a hidden force, making his strikes almost supernatural. Suddenly, an arrow flew towards Suho. He caught it mid-flight. Archers were among the enemies. Without hesitation, Suho fashioned a makeshift bow and fired back, landing a perfect headshot on the goblin archer. Beru watched in awe, impressed by Suho's adaptability. In his mind, Beru reflected on the young monarch's childhood. Even then, Suho had been able to wield the ruler's authority, an inheritance from the original Shadow Monarch. But that power was designed for destruction, so it had been suppressed in this peaceful world. Now, with the apostles of the outer gods invading Earth, the young monarch's power was beginning to awaken and illuminate this dark reality. Suho continued fighting and climbing through the dungeon levels. Suddenly, a goblin sneaked up and stabbed him in the back. The creature smirked, but before it could celebrate, Suho landed a brutal punch. More goblins swarmed him, and a towering figure approached, the goblin centurion. Suho grabbed a dagger as the goblin charged. Determined, he threw the dagger like lightning, skewering goblins left and right, and finally piercing the boss's chest. The battle was chaotic, but Suho felt more alive than ever before. Though bleeding and weakened, he refused to back down. Grabbing a weapon, he lunged into the fray. Eventually, silence fell. The battlefield was littered with goblin corpses. Suho had survived the trial. 4 grueling hours in the Shadow Dungeon. Beru applauded, proud but not surprised by what the young monarch had accomplished. Then came the reward. Suho checked his system notifications and saw he had earned a runestone called Shadow Extraction. Beru was surprised. He hadn't expected the young monarch to acquire such a skill so soon. Feeling his new power coursing through his body, Suho admitted he felt like a total cheat with all the skills and levels granted by the system since his awakening. Beru explained that the system Suho had received was based on the same one the original Shadow Monarch had used in the past. It was designed as a support system to ensure Suho's safety and growth as the young monarch. Hearing this, Suho accepted the reward without hesitation. The system handed him a runestone called Shadow Extraction and notified him that he could absorb the skill by breaking the stone. Suho absorbed the runestone, and a new window appeared. Skill acquired, Shadow Extraction. No mana required. Creates shadow soldiers by using dead bodies. Success depends on the enemy's strength and the time since death. For the first time, Suho understood the true potential of his reward. He could create shadow soldiers. Beru elaborated, explaining that this power was the very foundation of the legacy built by the Shadow Monarch, Lord Sung Jinwoo. With it, Suho could convert corpses into shadow soldiers, beings much like Beru himself. However, Suho was skeptical. It sounded like a form of necromancy, and to command soldiers, he first had to hunt and kill them. So didn't that mean he could only control those weaker than himself? Suho also knew that summon-type skills weren't looked upon favorably in the hunter industry. Still, his curiosity won out. He tried the shadow extraction skill on a nearby goblin corpse. The system notified him that he needed to assign a command to activate the skill. Suho confirmed that the command should be direct, then calmly said, "Arise." Dark energy flowed through the corpse, and moments later 3 shadow goblins rose before him. Level 1, common grade shadow goblins. Suho observed them and remarked, "So this is the shadow skill." But he wasn't impressed. Beru explained that soldiers freshly extracted from their shadows tended to be weaker than they had been in life. Suho noticed the goblins were smaller than usual. The system also stated that they would disappear after 1 day. Beru asked if Suho had a skill like shadow storage to keep them longer. Suho shook his head. Seeing Baru's disappointment, saying it seemed shadow abilities were influenced by intelligence stats and levels, which meant this would become an incredible skill as he grew stronger. Cheered up, Suho suggested they leave the dungeon, especially since he'd been starving for 2 days. Baru reminded him they could exit anytime by using the Shadow Dungeon key. They left the dungeon. Later, Suho found himself back in the hospital, sitting before a warm tray of food. His cheeks flushed with joy. He couldn't believe hospital food could taste this good. As Suho savored the meal, Baru stepped forward and explained their next task with solemn precision. They had been assigned 3 missions. First, they had to protect Earth from otherworldly beasts. Suho quickly realized what that meant. They needed to enter dungeons and hunt those monsters. Baru confirmed this and explained that as Suho hunted these beasts, his level would increase. As Suho grew stronger, Earth would become safer, just like the Shadow Monarch, Jinwoo, had once done. The second mission was to find the missing Lady Hein by any means necessary. Suho asked if there was any way to locate his mother. Baru answered that if they kept hunting the beasts, they might eventually find a clue. The only way forward was to delve deeper into the dungeons. The third mission was especially important, to help Baru regain his full strength. Baru, no longer just a soldier, wanted to demonstrate his true power against the monarch. Suho questioned how he could regain his strength. Baru explained that he could absorb some of his target's magical power and knowledge by consumption. Although this method was inefficient compared to before he became a shadow soldier, it was the only option now since he couldn't receive magic power from Suho directly. Therefore, Baru would need to consume things imbued with magical power. Suho nodded in understanding. So basically, that means we need to keep going into dungeons, he concluded. After finishing his meal, Suho stood up. Baru added that to enter dungeons officially, Suho would need a hunter qualification. This meant going to the Hunter Association to have his magical power measured. Suho nodded thoughtfully. As someone who had awakened and was steadily growing stronger, he couldn't help but wonder, what rank would he receive? What if he got something like an S rank? At the association, a staff member measured Suho's magical power and announced that it was 46, making him an E rank awakener. Suho stepped outside the building, the weight of the results pressing down on him. His steps were slow and his thoughts grew darker. Baru gently explained that hunter ranks were primarily determined by magical power. It was natural for Suho's rank to be lower than his actual abilities since Suho had focused on developing other stats. Suho asked Baru if, with his shadow abilities in this rank, an E rank like him could really protect the Earth. Baru reminded him calmly that Suho possessed the level-up system as the young monarch. Suho recalled how difficult it was for E and F rank hunters. They were rarely recruited for expeditions, and even entering dungeons was often a problem. Suddenly, his eyes brightened as he shared an idea with Baru. Dungeon raids were organized with a strict division of labor. The assault team attacked the dungeon directly. The recovery team followed behind to collect carcasses of the beasts. The mining team extracted resources from the dungeon's rear. Among these groups, the recovery and mining teams, excluding the assault team, could be supported by E-rank hunters. In other words, even an E-rank hunter like him could enter a dungeon. That was how Suho found himself wiping sweat from his brow inside a dungeon. He turned to Lim Dalkyun, his former instructor from the University of the Arts, and also an E-rank awakener. Suho thanked Lim for the opportunity, explaining that he had only recently awakened and was grateful to work in a dungeon like this. Lim wrestled with guilt. He apologized for what happened during the incident at the Korean University of Arts. He said he was scared and ran away during his awakening. He apologized again, feeling powerless. Sensing Lim's guilt, Suho reassured him gently. You're also an E-rank awakener. The Hunter Association advises E-rank hunters, like you and me, to flee with full power if we encounter dangerous beasts. Lim looked up in surprise. Wait, you're only E-rank? Suho nodded calmly. My magical power is 46. It's low even among E-ranks. Lim blinked, unable to believe it. He recalled seeing Suho fighting a beast on the rooftop while fleeing and wondered if he had misjudged him. Seeing that an E-rank hunter like Suho had survived by charging at a beast was even more impressive. At that moment, Baru appeared beside them, speaking proudly. The young monarch is exceptional. Lim turned and froze, his eyes locking onto Baru. Fear gripped him. He stumbled backward, eyes wide, shouting, "A monster!" Suho gave Baru an annoyed glance. "Why did you suddenly appear?" Baru remained calm as always. The monarch was as weak as a larva. "I need to stay close and protect him to ensure his safety." Lim stared in confusion. "Did you awaken as a summoner-type hunter?" Suho nodded in agreement. Lim chuckled nervously. "Well, you're lucky. Most E ranks don't get any skills." "I've got a running skill." Suho smirked. "That explains why you escaped so well back then." Lim's face darkened, but Suho quickly added with a grin, "I'm just joking." As Beru complimented Suho again, Suho looked around, thinking this was his first time inside a dungeon, besides the Shadow Dungeon. Looking ahead, he wondered if the assault team was hunting beasts up front. Deep within a dungeon, the assault team cut down the last of the beasts. One of the hunters let out a weary sigh and muttered that the dungeon felt unusually empty. Another nodded, noting that since earlier, only wolf-type beasts had been appearing. Wolf pelts didn't sell for much, making the effort feel hardly worth it. A third chimed in, pointing out that sometimes even low-tier beasts contain magic crystals, so they had to keep pressing forward regardless. The captain encouraged his team not to lose morale. They wouldn't know what truly lay at the end of the dungeon until they got there. Suddenly, a shout came from behind. "Captain, there's something inside this side path." The captain stepped forward, eyes narrowing as he saw what lay ahead. Ancient, massive ruins stood silently in the darkness. The assault team gathered around, staring in hushed awe. "Not even a flicker on our detection skills. What's going on?" The silence, the lack of beasts, and the mysterious structure only deepened their unease. Speculations began to swirl among the team. Some wondered if the ruins hid treasure instead of a dungeon boss. As they searched, their eyes were drawn to a single object, an old sword stuck in the ground, partially buried in rubble. The captain stepped closer to examine it. "We'll need to appraise it first to be sure," he said cautiously. "But judging by its aura, this weapon might be incredibly valuable. Still, treasures like these often come with traps." Despite the warning, one man stepped forward. Kim Youngjin, a confident C-rank tank, brushed off the captain's concerns. "Even if it's trapped," he said, "I can handle it." Without hesitation, he grasped the sword. The blade began to glow with a crimson aura. An overwhelming pressure spread through the air. Then the ground beneath them turned red, like it was bleeding. The earth shuddered. Eyes began to open across the floor itself. And yet Kim Young-jin pulled the sword free. The captain let out a relieved breath. "Looks like there were no traps after all." But his words trailed off as he looked into Kim Young-jin's eyes, now glowing red. Without warning, Kim Young-jin turned on the captain and swung the sword. The blade sliced clean through him. Everyone froze in shock. Then, with a voice not entirely his own, Kim Young-jin, now clearly possessed, declared, "Who dares claim the Fang Monarch's blade?" A voice echoed in his mind. "Kill the intruders who dare enter the Fang Lord's territory. Kill them all." As the bloodshed began, elsewhere near the mining zone, the support team looked on in confusion. Three goblin-like shadows were mining magic crystals with remarkable speed and precision. Lim Doyen stared, barely believing what he saw. He had heard of summoners before, but they usually could only manage one or two creatures at most. Yet Suho had summoned three goblins, and including the ghost that spoke earlier, that made four. Unheard of. Suho stood nearby, reflecting on his own powers. Normally, shadow extraction required the presence of corpses, but he had discovered a workaround using goblin remains from the Shadow Dungeon. They were perfect for simple labor and worked without complaint. "Shadow extraction is really convenient," Suho murmured. "Baru, the ghostly knight," responded gruffly. "Please don't praise me while assigning me grunt work, young monarch." But his tone turned serious. "We came here to level up, not to run a mining operation." Suho nodded. By Hunter Association regulations, E-rank hunters weren't allowed to enter dungeons alone. He was planning to level up and then request a reevaluation. He also remembered their secondary goal, restoring Beru's strength. Scattered across the cave floor were fragments of low-grade magic stones. "They might help restore your power," Suho said softly. "Even these fragments contain traces of mana." "Eat them quickly." Beru complied. But as he chewed on the crystal shards, his body tensed suddenly. He froze. He informed Suho, "I just sensed the presence of a monarch just now." Suho's heart skips a beat. "You mean my father?" But Baru shakes his head. "No, if it were your father, my power would have been fully restored on the spot. This presence, it's different." His eyes narrow as he scans the dungeon's energy, saying it's probably the beast monarch. Back near the entrance, a miner suddenly stiffened as a deep rumble echoed from a tunnel. He turned slowly toward the sound, the very tunnel the assault team had gone into. Then from the shadows, three blood-red eyes slowly opened. They glowed ominously, watching. A monstrous beast stepped forward from the tunnel, its form cloaked in thick shadows. Its eyes glowed with bloodlust, and jagged teeth gleamed beneath its snarl. Panic rippled through the group of miners. One miner swung his pickaxe in desperation, but the beast caught it in its jaws and bit down. The metal shattered like a twig, sending fragments clattering across the ground. The man stumbled backward, paralyzed by fear and hopelessness. Then a blur shot between them. Suho surged forward, wielding his own pickaxe. With a sharp swing, he struck the creature across the head, forcing it back just long enough to create distance. "Evacuate," he shouted. "I'll buy you some time." The miner didn't hesitate. He turned and ran toward the surface. Suho squared his stance, eyes locked onto the beast as its oppressive aura thickened the air. He recognized it, one of the steel-fanged lichens. The monster's power matched that of the D-rank creature he had fought back at the Korean Arts University. But unlike before, he wasn't alone. Behind him, Lim Doyen stood frozen in place. Suho could feel the hesitation radiating off him. Their eyes met. Suho's gaze silently offered Doyen a choice: retreat or stay. But Doyen didn't move. His voice was shaky but firm. He said he had tried helping others evacuate alone, but he had made a decision. He wouldn't run away by himself anymore. Suho gave a nod of approval. "Then help me when I'm in danger," he said. With a fluid motion, Suho summoned three shadow goblins. From his inventory, he drew a weapon, a dark curved blade harvested from the shadow dungeon. It was far deadlier than a pickaxe. Doyen stood speechless. Not only was Suho summoning monsters, he was summoning weapons too. What kind of skill allowed this? Before he could process it further, Suho moved. With a sudden burst of speed, Suho launched forward. The lichen barely reacted before Suho's blade sliced through it with surgical precision. The beast collapsed. Doyen's jaw hung open. The goblin's shadows leapt up and down in excitement, celebrating the swift kill. Then Suho raised a hand and spoke a single command: "Arise." The lichen's corpse began to tremble. Darkness surged beneath it. Another lichen lunged at them. But now two blades met its charge. Suho deflected its strike, and his newly born lichen's shadow countered with a crushing blow, sending the monster staggering. Barry, watching from the edge of the tunnel, couldn't hide his pride. The young monarch is already adapting to combat with shadow powers, he thought. Suho remained focused. He had realized something crucial. Extraction and summoning didn't consume mana. As his magical strength increased and the number of allowable extractions grew, he could build an army. Determined, Suho struck down another lichen with swift precision. "Arise," he commanded again. Another shadow rose. Doyen stood stunned, barely breathing. Only one of the original shadow goblins remained. Suho faced the final beast. He defeated it without hesitation. "Arise," he said once more. The shadow obeyed. Doyen remained rooted in place, staring at the impossible. This wasn't the strength of a typical E rank, the ability to command dead monsters. It wasn't normal. Suho could see the disbelief in Doyen's eyes. He gave a small, amused smile. "I'm just a really good E rank," he said casually. Doyen's thoughts halted. A terrifying possibility crossed his mind. Could Suho be a false ranker? Someone who intentionally registered under a lower rank? Then Suho's eyes flickered. A system notification appeared before him. "A quest has arrived. An entity with murderous intent is approaching. Eliminate the threat to secure your safety." Suho narrowed his eyes, scanning the battlefield. He had already defeated every lichen he could see. Yet the system insisted one more enemy remained. A chill crept through the air. There was something else, something coming. Ahead of them, someone approached through the smoke-filled tunnel. Lim squinted and whispered that the man was definitely part of the raid party, but something about him felt off. Suho stepped forward to intercept him, but before he could act, Lim suddenly rushed to question the man, asking what was going on and why he was alone. That was when it all went wrong. Without warning, the man lunged. A blade tore through the air, aimed straight for Doyen's chest. In an instant, Suho moved, pure instinct driving him. He grabbed Doyen by the collar and yanked him back, just barely avoiding a fatal strike. As Doyen stumbled away, eyes wide with shock, Suho raised a hand. With a sharp gesture, his shadow wolves burst into action. They snarled and charged the attacker, but Suho's instincts told him something was wrong. Dragging the unconscious Lim to safety, Suho questioned the nature of their attacker. This wasn't an ordinary hunter. This man was possessed. He glanced up and saw the red glow above the hunter's head. A red name. Suho's chest tightened. He had seen it once before, back at the Korean Arts University. And he remembered clearly, red names meant death. But Suho turned to Beru, asking quietly, "This doesn't mean it's a monarch like my father." Beru answered immediately, "It carries great power, but no, it's not at the level of a monarch. However, that doesn't mean you can handle it right now." Suho didn't flinch. His gaze remained locked on the enemy. "The system said it's an auxiliary tool to help me grow steadily," he muttered to himself. "If it gave me this quest, that means I have a chance." More than anything, he needed to grow stronger. He needed to reach his father. The possessed hunter roared, slashing down Suho's shadow soldiers with brutal ease. Yet Suho didn't waver. He stared down the red-named enemy, determination burning in his eyes. He said he would defeat this enemy and grow stronger. Right here, right now. Beru watched from the shadows, a flicker of awe in his gaze. Despite all the overwhelming trials he's faced, he never runs. In Suho's still developing figure, Beru could see it, the echo of the shadow monarch himself. Beru stepped closer, offering advice. "That thing's true form is the sword. If you can sever its arm and separate it from the host, it won't be able to move anymore." Hearing that, Suho nodded and summoned his shadow wolves. The possessed hunter sensed the shadows and let out a deafening roar. 3 shadow wolves lunged at him head-on. One of them clamped its powerful jaws around the blade itself, halting the enemy's motion. Suho's eyes widened in surprise. The wolves were regenerating again after being cut down. Beru nodded in confirmation. "Shadow soldiers are spiritual bodies. As long as you supply them with mana, they'll keep rising." He then asked Suho, "Do you like this power?" But before Suho could answer, their entire force of shadow soldiers was wiped out in a single violent sweep. Suho's voice wavered as he questioned, "What's so great about the power of shadow soldiers?" Beru's expression hardened. "They were defeated because your mana is still weak, young monarch." Then unexpectedly, the possessed hunter spoke, its voice thick with disbelief and rage. "How can an insignificant being like you wield the Shadow Monarch's power?" Suho's eyes narrowed. The monster could talk. Beru's voice rang out with fury, snapping at the possessed man for daring to call the young monarch of the same bloodline as Jinwoo. The enemy's burning eyes narrowed in recognition. A hateful growl escaped his lips. "The Shadow Monarch's bloodline. To think I would encounter it here." He roared, declaring Suho the sworn enemy of the Fang Monarch. Suho responded by hurling a dagger at him. The possessed warrior deflected it with ease. Without pause, Suho summoned more weapons from his inventory and launched them like a storm. But the enemy batted away each one effortlessly. Suho muttered to himself. It was exactly what he expected. A red-named monster could easily deflect attacks of this level. His eyes swept the battlefield, scanning for opportunities. Scattered weapons lay strewn across the ground. Suho raised a hand. One by one, the weapons trembled. With a fierce command, he launched the entire arsenal toward the enemy. Beru observed from the sidelines, his eyes filled with admiration. What Suho was displaying wasn't just raw instinct. It was a natural aptitude for ruler's authority, a power he had unknowingly used since birth. But even that wasn't enough. The possessed warrior let out a furious roar, and with one sweeping motion, shattered the entire volley of incoming weapons. The sheer force of it sent a tremor through the tunnel. Suho charged again, sword in hand, refusing to back down. But with terrifying ease, the enemy cleaved the blade in two. A flicker of panic flashed through Suho's mind. If even a goblin-forged weapon can't survive one strike, then what do I even have left to fight with? He barely dodged the next blow, his body moving on instinct, smooth and fast. One wrong move, and it would all be over. The enemy sneered, mocking him cruelly. Why do you keep running, coward? Just like the shadow monarch you idolize, always hiding behind his shadow soldiers. Suho gritted his teeth. The insult stung, but he forced his emotions down. It was bait, meant to draw him into a reckless attack. And deep inside, he knew the truth. Right now, he didn't have the confidence to face this enemy head-on. If only I had more power. His thoughts drifted to a moment in the hospital, not long ago. He had asked Baru why, even with the seal broken, his old strength hadn't returned. Baru had answered calmly. The seal had suppressed Suho's abilities since birth. What he was experiencing now wasn't a regression, but the slow reawakening of his true potential. The power he once wielded inside the tower had never been permanent. That overwhelming strength had been part of the trial itself. The tower was never just a battlefield, it was a test, a place to prove he could carry the burden of his own power. Once the test was over, pass or fail, the strength would fade, but the experience that remained. Suho had asked if that meant the tower wasn't a game. Baru had reassured him it was no illusion. The blood, the struggle, the fury, they were all real. The tower had simply shown him what he could become. A realization struck Suho. He remembered his own fighting style back then, close quarters, hand to hand, and Baru's words echoed again. Shadow soldiers are spiritual bodies. As long as there's mana, they can regenerate infinitely. His eyes flicked to Baru. If Baru could shift forms, what about others? Suho summoned his shadow wolf. The enemy laughed at the display, mocking Suho for resorting to another trick. It lunged, blade drawn, ready to end the fight. Suho dodged again, creating space between them. Just enough. As the cursed blade came crashing down toward him, Suho's hand moved. The shadow wolf began to merge into his arm, its essence fusing with his limb. The cursed blade slammed into Suho, but it didn't cut. The enemy's smirk twisted into confusion. The strike had been blocked. Suho raised his arm, revealing a dark, armored gauntlet formed from the wolf's shadow. He commented dryly that the steel-fanged lichen was living up to its name. The clawed gauntlet held firm, stopping the sword in its tracks. Now free from the enemy's pressure, Suho grinned. This changed everything. With this gauntlet, close combat is more than enough, he muttered. At that moment, a system notification flashed before his eyes. Shadow extraction has leveled up to level 2. New ability unlocked. Form change. Suho's smile deepened. The real fight had just begun. And as the tunnel echoed with the clash of steel and shadow, he and the possessed enemy collided in a ferocious, close-range duel. Neither willing to back down. From the shadows, Baru observed silently. He couldn't help but marvel. Good heavens, to weaponize a shadow soldier. Though the shadow monarch far surpassed all others in terms of mastery, manipulating shadows with absolute freedom, Suho, this young monarch, was still like a newly hatched ant larva, only just beginning to grasp the nature of his powers. And yet, despite having no teacher, Suho had instinctively begun unraveling the next step in mastering shadow authority. His combat sense, his innate feel for the ruler's authority, and even his improvisational use of shadows all pointed to one conclusion. Suho was a natural-born prodigy. Blow after blow, Suho pummeled the enemy, slamming him into the dungeon wall. Dust billowed, but before he could finish it, the enemy rose again, defiant. Without hesitation, Suho surged forward. Weapons scattered on the ground responded to his call, lifting into the air like a deadly storm before crashing toward the enemy. This was Suho's moment. His fists, now cloaked in pure shadow energy, drove into the enemy again and again. Each hit echoed with the force of his resolve. The possessed warrior had no time to recover, and finally, It ended. Suho exhaled, a trace of worry still lingering. The red-named opponent had been dangerous but not invincible. Baru remained quiet, watching with pride flickering in his glowing eyes. Suho, catching his breath, reflected on the battle. At the very least, he had learned a new fighting technique, an unexpected but valuable reward. Then a system notification appeared. You have learned the skill, Storm Slash. Suho's eyes lit up. It was exactly the kind of reward he had hoped for. He could already feel the energy pulsing inside him, the technique taking root. Shadow energy swirled at his fingertips. He needed a proper weapon to use it. His gaze landed on the cursed weapon, the Fang Blade. From within the sword, a whisper echoed in defiance. How could I be defeated by the bloodline of the Shadow Monarch? This is humiliating. It sensed Suho's approach and seethed. This isn't over. Humans are always greedy. Let him touch me. The moment he does, I'll devour him. Suho's hand closed around the hilt. Item acquired. Raken's Fang. Suho smirked. Looks a lot better than those goblin swords. Yet within the weapon's consciousness, the prideful spirit still rebelled. How could a sword that inherited the power of the Fang monarch not be able to dominate a mere human? Another notification appeared. Blessing acquired. Great Shaman Kandiaru's blessing. Suho steadied his breath, eager to test his new skill. Shadow energy surged as he activated Storm Slash, sending shock waves that destroyed everything around him in a massive arc of devastation. Suho admired the damage but frowned slightly. Drains all my mana with just one use. But I like the power. Baru, standing by, commented that shadow extraction and shadow authority would prove to be far greater, thousands of times more powerful. Later, Lim groaned and slowly regained consciousness, his vision swimming. Suho stood beside him, calm and composed. Lim, confused, asked what had happened. Suho replied simply, "It's a long story. Let's talk on the way out." Outside the gate, Suho paused, turning back toward the portal. There might still be survivors inside, he said. As Suho stepped back through the gate, Do-Yun watched silently, thoughts racing. An E-rank summoner. On paper, it sounds unimpressive. So how is he growing this strong? But in the end, he shook his head. That didn't matter right now. What mattered was that Suho was saving people. Back inside, more steel fang lichens emerged from the shadows, glowing with malice. Suho met them head-on, smashing through with raw strength. Still, he noted that many wolf beasts remained. Baru urged him to finish them off, for the experience and growth. But as Suho attacked, he noticed something strange. The sword's damage output had dropped. He questioned the Fang Blade. The weapon answered coldly, stating it refused to cooperate with the bloodline of the Shadow Monarch. Baru mocked the blade, saying that granting power only when fighting weaker foes was a petty ability. The sword retorted sharply, asking what kind of hunter seeks prey stronger than themselves. Baru responded proudly, "The young lord just defeated you, and you were relatively strong." The two bickered, their voices overlapping. Suho sighed. A talking bug and now a talking sword. This is getting ridiculous. But then, his attention snapped to something nearby. He moved swiftly through the dungeon, and soon he arrived at a chilling sight. The Sanctuary of the Fangs. Hunter corpses were strewn across the floor in silence. Suho's eyes narrowed, his fists clenched. Baru quietly confirmed. They were all dead. The sword, however, remained cold and emotionless. I merely eliminated those who dared to trespass, it said. It is my mission to guard the sanctuary of the Monarch of Fangs. Suho gripped the fang blade tightly, then suddenly drove it into the ground with force. He whispered under his breath, "Be quiet, just for a moment." At that instant, a system notification appeared before his eyes. Shadow extraction is available on this target. Suho stared at the message, momentarily stunned. Baru, observing quietly, stepped forward and explained in a calm, instructive tone. Any corpse, regardless of species or origin, can be turned into a shadow soldier, young monarch. Suho looked down at the fallen body of the hunter. After a long pause, he slowly knelt and gently lifted the body in his arms, choosing to carry it himself. Baru tilted his head in confusion and asked, Why not perform shadow extraction? Suho's voice was low, filled with quiet conviction. Making them fight again after death would only be another form of punishment. A respectful silence settled between them. Suho carefully covered the fallen body, his expression solemn and composed. Then after a moment's thought, Suho raised his gaze. Beru, you said this place is a sanctuary of a monarch. Is it possible my father has one too? He hesitated before continuing. He fought and defeated other monarchs, didn't he? Who were they? Are they connected to the outer gods? Beru gave a slow nod and began his explanation. The outer gods are the enemies your father faces now, the monarchs. They were his enemies in the past. He raised his claw and continued. There are 9 monarchs in total. Suho remained silent, listening intently as Beru listed them one by one. The great Sung Jinwoo, your father, is the king of the dead, the monarch of shadows. Then there is the king of beasts, the monarch of fangs, the queen of insects, the monarch of plagues, the king of monstrous humanoids, the monarch of the iron body, the king of demons, the monarch of white flames, the king of giants, the monarch of the beginning, the king of snow folk, the monarch of frost, the king of demonic specters, the monarch of transfiguration, and lastly, the most fearsome of them all, the king of berserk dragons, the monarch of destruction. Beru paused, his tone now filled with reverence. Though each monarch possessed power beyond comprehension, 8 of them were defeated. All fell at the hands of your father, the shadow monarch. Sung Jinwoo. Suho's eyes widened, disbelief washing over him. The sword's voice erupted with twisted rage, its hatred seething like a storm. The monarch of shadows is the enemy who killed my master, the monarch of fangs. It snarled. If only my strength remained uncorrupted, I would have torn you apart, blood of the shadow monarch, and cast your remains to the wolves. Despite the blade's fury, Suho remained composed. His tone was steady, even understanding. He replied, my father must have fought the other monarchs to protect the earth, just like you fought to defend this sanctuary from intruders. Both of you acted to protect what mattered to you. He stepped closer, his gaze unwavering. But there's something that doesn't sit right with me. Your assumption that you have to fight me just because I carry his blood. Suho's voice sharpened. If your mission is to protect this place, then isn't it foolish to turn against the son of the one who already defeated the monarch of fangs? A heavy silence fell over the sanctuary. The sword's aura flickered, its defiance shaken. Suho stepped forward again, gripping the hilt firmly. I want to find my parents. They were separated by invaders from outer gods, and I'll do whatever it takes to get them back. He paused, his tone softening. This sanctuary might not survive the outer gods' invasion on its own, but if you help me, then I'll help you protect this place. The sword hesitated. Suho lifted it slightly, his voice firm with resolve. Shadow and Fang, he said, let's fight together. A moment of silence passed. The scene shifted to a quiet cafe, its atmosphere calm as people walked by. Inside, a reporter sat across from Lim Dogyeon, a solemn expression on his face. Can you tell us what happened in the D-rank dungeon yesterday? He asked. Lim Dogyeon, one of the few survivors of the incident, nodded slowly. He thought to himself, even if Suho is just an E-rank, he deserves recognition for what he did. This is my chance to repay the debt I owe him. And so, he told them everything. Later that evening, an article began circulating online. It told the gripping story of a full strike squad wiped out in a D-rank dungeon, only for an E-rank hunter to emerge as the unexpected savior. It detailed how one young hunter charged alone into the fray, fighting off deadly magical beasts to save the lives of countless others. The piece included interviews with witnesses who saw it all firsthand, ordinary people and fellow hunters alike, who all remembered one name, the E-rank hunter who didn't run, the one who stood his ground, Sung Suho. The scene shifted to the Black Tortoise Guild's management office. Inside the conference room, Lee Young-ho leaned back in his chair, tapping a pen against the table. We should consider recruiting a few more porters, he suggested. One of the staff members nodded. Or maybe we bring in additional E-rank hunters to support the reinforcement pickup teams. At that, Jung-ho slid over a candidate profile on his tablet. "Take a look at this one," he said. The staff member read the report aloud. An E-rank hunter evacuated an entire mining team during a D-rank dungeon break, fought off magic beasts, and carried wounded strike team members to safety. His eyebrows rose. An E-rank did all this. Jung-ho gave a sharp nod. "Reach out to him. Immediately. If a big guild like ours brings him in, it'll make for a killer headline. A hero rises from the E-ranks." Moments later, a staffer dropped his phone in disbelief. Jung-ho glanced up. Did Hunter Sung Suho reply? The staffer hesitated before responding. Yes, but he declined the invitation. What? Jung-ho blinked in confusion. An E-rank turning down the Black Tortoise Guild. That doesn't make any sense. What kind of rookie refuses an offer from one of the top guilds? The staff member scratched his head. He said he's not planning to join any guild right now. Maybe he'll change his mind after some thought. Eventually, he'll realize how unreasonable it is to operate solo. Meanwhile, Suho stared at his phone, letting out a soft sigh. Unread messages piled up, guild invitations, scouting requests, and more. He turned to Baru. Since returning from the dungeon, I've been swamped with offers. Baru's tone was full of pride. It's only natural, young monarch. Many desire your talent. But Suho looked unimpressed. Most of them just want to hire me as a collector or a porter. Why are so many trying to recruit me for grunt work? More importantly, Suho understood the true reason he couldn't join a guild yet. Doing so would restrict his freedom and limit his potential growth through the leveling system. He stood and changed the subject. Shall we continue the discussion about Raken's Fang? He remembered the moment he had extended the offer. Shadow and Fang, let's fight together. Silence had filled the sanctuary back then. Raken's Fang had hesitated, baffled at Suho's audacity. How could he say something so absurd so easily? But in that silence, a realization had dawned. If this shadow becomes an ally and not an enemy. Finally, the sword had agreed, on one condition, that Suho take it to another sanctuary of the Monarch of Fangs. Now back in the present, Suho looked at the blade. Do you know how to find the next sanctuary? Raken's Fang pulsed with confidence. If it's a sanctuary of the Monarch of Fangs, I can sense it, no matter how far. But something's off. I can feel it. The gate has vanished. A dungeon break. The sword responded. Suho's expression hardened. So the sanctuary turned into a field-type dungeon. Field-type dungeons were different. Unlike normal gates, they emerged after a dungeon break when monsters spilled into the surrounding area. Without a gate to seal them in, the land became a corrupted zone, overrun with creatures, untouched by humans. Suho quickly typed out a message to his uncle, notifying him of the new objective. If this corrupted sanctuary was truly a field dungeon, then that would be his next destination. Let's go, he said. It's time to find the sanctuary of the Monarch of Fangs. That wraps up the main chapters 1 through 10 of the Solo Leveling Ragnarok series, and I couldn't be more excited for what's coming next. Thank you so much for watching. I truly appreciate your support. If you haven't already, be sure to subscribe so you don't miss what's coming up. Thanks again, and I'll see you in the next video.